What's going on, everybody? I hope you're having a good week. So today we're talking about the evolution of idolizing video games and the degeneration of gamers and their feedback towards big AAA titles like Assassin's Creed, Cyberpunk, and even the recent Resident Evil 4. Now, I remember the good old days playing Halo Combat Evolved with a group of friends and friends of friends, going to some older kid's basement and playing System Link games until the sun died out. Halo was the first killer app and a blockbuster title for any console, let alone the Xbox. It was the game that made you forget your school problems and home life issues, and timing that rocket launcher in Halo 1 in the ice fields was the greatest feeling as a gamer in the early 2000s. And there's something about that time that felt so much different than modern games that we have now. And I want those days back, where couch co-op was everything, and when Halo wasn't being made by a company who didn't care about your feedback. And I'm not saying at some point Bungie wasn't that way, because after Halo 2, demos for the games were non-existent. And Halo 2 was one of the first video games to not have a demo, but that made gamers only trust its reputation. And as a kid, I fully fell for it, because when Halo 2 came out, the campaign was honestly a letdown for me. And the multiplayer was glitchy to all hell. Halo 2 was a masterpiece, but it had a lot of problems, and problems we could have avoided if they went about it like they did with Halo 1. But it truly was the first game that's name was bigger than the actual game itself, where playing it was the best thing you could do at the time. There was no feedback, only Xbox employees, selected candidates, and paid reviewers got to play Halo 2. It was the equivalent of an MCU movie with any and all details under wraps. And when you think of MCU, you think of a lot of money, and Halo was, at the time, the most successful video game. Halo started the greatest franchise of all time, but also started video game simping or worshipping. Now when a demo comes out, if the title is big enough, people only feel lucky to play it. There's no actual feedback from most channels or outlets before the game comes out because there's no option to give any kind of feedback before its launch. Even bigger channels don't use their platform to make the game better, so the developers don't feel inclined to make changes until after the game is released. It's a strange phenomenon to have almost no feedback where it counts, but instead have people say it only until after they've already purchased the game. I remember buying an Xbox or PlayStation magazine with a demo disc inside of it, and determining if I liked the game based on that experience with the demo. Now we would be lucky to ever receive a demo with a high-profile game like Assassin's Creed or Halo. Console games do have trials, which usually come with an Xbox Live or PlayStation Plus subscription. Demos today usually don't come free. You're already paying a paid subscription like with PlayStation Plus Premium. The recent Cyberpunk 2077 is a perfect example of a game desperately needing a demo to showcase its flaws. If that game had a demo instead of certain people getting paid to review it on certain platforms, maybe Cyberpunk 2077 would have gotten the proper treatment instead of backlash, which was way too late. Gamers aren't the only ones suffering for the lack of pro-consumer care. Developers like 343 Industries seem to not know which opinions to care about, so their games are usually riddled with anti-consumer and pro-publisher elements like lack of split-screen co-op and short campaigns with simple multiplayer stages. Almost like they're making the new Halos under a rock. I'm not saying demos would fix all of our problems, but if demos did exist for almost every game like they did in the past, if consumers or gamers have proper feedback, maybe we would have more killer apps and not just overhyped advertised franchises with the basic open worlds. Maybe AAA games would all be different, like the indie scene is looking. Indie developers are the best aspects of gaming at the moment, while AAA developers seem to have investments at the front of their minds. Now more than ever, we need demos for AAA games, and gamers to give proper feedback for them. I feel most people don't know how to give feedback because there really isn't any options. With Resident Evil 4's recent Chainsaw demo, the game has legitimate problems that hold it back, in my opinion. But how could anybody know if most people are lathering an already overhyped remake with more of the same compliments, instead of constructive criticism and honesty? But of course, that will come after the game comes out. So all of these tall tale signs mean nothing because it's just a demo. Because of lack of this feedback, if the game's clipping and rubber banding issues on PC don't get addressed more, there will be yet another bad PC port. If any platform needs demos, it's Steam games more than anything. Because even if most console gamers don't care about PC, I still care and wouldn't want another Batman Arkham Knight or Halo Master Chief Collection situation happening. Games for every platform needs more demos, but games on PC desperately need demos or trials of some kind. Of course, the developer wouldn't like to give us that option and freedom because that would mean more time for that game to be in the oven, and time is money, so we apparently just have to trust their words. But PC games especially have been suffering for the lack of demos and feedback, and it's mainly because of all the hardware differences. But feedback can help mitigate those problems to at least have proper day 1 or day 2 patches for those PC gamers who spend thousands on their gaming rigs. But the problems don't stop at PC. Console games have seen the same situation for years, and it's becoming less and less pro-consumer in the span of just 5 years alone. This is why we see so many gaming channels talk about these problems when it's too late. So the only hope nowadays is to ruin the game's reputation to get the attention of the developers. But at that point, in this day and age, by the time the developer's reputation is ruined, there isn't any point for them to fix the game. Like with Marvel's Avengers, they added so many free DLC expansions for it, but at the end of the day, it didn't matter because that game's reputation was already ruined, and they just simply weren't trusted anymore. And I really like Marvel's Avengers. If that game had an easily accessible demo or proper feedback system, like with Capcom, maybe all of the hate for it could have been in the form of constructive feedback to make the game better before release, but instead it was the laughingstock because that option didn't exist. Instead, you needed to be a Square Enix member to play the demo with YouTube videos giving tutorials on how to play it. Demos need to be more easily accessible, and feedback needs to be easier to deliver to the developers. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that just give hate to the developers and not feedback, and there's a reason for that issue, and I'll get to it soon. But the main problem isn't the demo or feedback, as I stated in the beginning of the video. It's the lack of gamers asking for it and the worshipping of big franchises to the point when the person finally plays it, all they can legally say is, "Thank you, Ubisoft, for providing the game and letting me play it." Certain big profile YouTubers get a chance to test the game, but also get a script. Back then, if that ever happened, that would have been extremely sketchy, and most people wouldn't trust the game. And early on with games like Halo 2, we saw a scripted demo for 9 minutes, and the world over, myself included, went crazy for it. I think that's a craze that children are allowed to have, but as an adult with my own money, I see that kind of craze and worship for a gaming franchise as a dangerous thing, especially seeing the lack of feedback with mobile games and our children actually developing a gambling addiction or going crazy if they got their Nintendo Switch taken away. These addictions are more prevalent and more easily accessible, but the feedback and thoughtfulness for those games aren't. Gaming has gone from fun little hobby to full-on addiction and worship. Like I said, a demo and feedback can't fix this, but an adjustment on perspective can. Just giving my honest feedback on a game to make it better received a lot of negativity and people saying stuff like, "It's just a demo." But Capcom wants our feedback, and most people are too in love with the idea of a new game to think about that. So all I ask is that people put their illogical hype aside to give their actual constructive criticism, and hopefully talks of a demo for newer AAA games will be as common as it used to be. And hopefully criticism and the lack of fear of hearing it will also be a thing. I can imagine going into a crack house and saying, "You know, this doesn't hit as good as it used to." I can bet money I'll either get attacked or they'll say, "Hey, if you don't want it, I'll take it." But instead of that specific situation, it seems there are millions of small crack houses around the world that don't want to hear honesty. It's true, it's just a game, but so many people are playing that it's become a lifestyle. So let's try to work together to fix that lifestyle by stepping back and realizing feedback can only make the quality of the game better. And we don't need another 10 games to make us feel better. Maybe we only need a good one, like with the Halo franchise or classics like Pac-Man. Maybe life doesn't have to revolve around the next big game, or only for us to either regret buying it or to move on to the next one only a month later. And I can already see people in the comments saying, "Well, if you don't like the game, then don't play it." But I see a game as media and luxury for people that deserve it. I don't see it as something that is a consumer product that shouldn't have any kind of logical thought or common sense put into it. I see it as something that is possibly a constructive outlet and not an addiction. Giving constructive criticism is giving the game the respect it deserves. Imagine if you had a kid, but you never taught them any lessons or corrected them when they're wrong. Why even bother be a parent at that point? Why even bother being a gamer if we're just moving on a few weeks later without any real takeaway? Or just regret. I think I'm one of the few gamers to play the same game for years. I'm usually just looking for the next greatest game so I can play it for years just like the last one. And I feel there are tons of gamers out there looking for the same thing, but don't know how to find it. So just helping the cause of trying to find the next classic is what I'm mainly trying to do here. So the most we could do now is try our hardest to predict what will be the next killer app. Those gamers are forward thinkers and judge the right way, while the ones who just wait to see how the full game is are consumers, but not even good consumers. They're more like addicts. Imagine if we had the same rock-hard pillows and metal bed springs from the past and nobody actually went to the companies to give their honest feedback about how the bed is causing injury or even mental damage. We would be stuck with those same metal spring beds till this day. Progression and evolution is all about pointing out the flaws. Without that, all we are mindless consumers or addicts. And those type of gamers need to end. And hopefully this video helps some people realize they have a real problem. And let me know what you think about the video game empire. Has it gone too far to the point of no return? Or can we have classics again with developers that truly care about the game before they see the money? And let me know what you think in general down below in the comments. And thank you guys so much for watching, and have a good one. Later.